Going back now to the Sweet Dreams album, it's released, you do 2 videos, Sweet Dreams, Love is a Stranger, very unusual videos for its time. And in fact, that album and those 2 tracks were sort of like sleepers for such a long time, and then suddenly it all started to happen. In between the time it had been released and all this sleeping is going on with the tracks, what were your own thoughts at that stage?
I was very pessimistic, as I usually am. I was very disillusioned by the whole record business and the whole thing. So I never expected that it would be successful, even though I knew that it was really good. I just didn't foresee it somehow. And
yet, once it took off, it really took off. I mean, with Sweet Dreams, I remember at home, it actually, I think in one sense, I can talk from Australia's point of view, it started to change the whole thought of, even in the dance markets, of what songs could actually work, you know? Because they'd been very much stuck into pure Euro disco virtually, you know?
Yeah, I think we introduced a strange mixture of melancholy soul with synthesized kind of urgency. And the 2 things, at first listening, would appear to jar. But after a while, I think a lot of people, you know, like Yazoo and, you know, New Order and bands, we all came from a similar kind of time and place. Became very popular altogether all of a sudden.
Well, even Human League at that stage.
And Human League,
with the Dare album.
Yeah, and so it was a very exciting new time. You know, whenever there's a new music, like the birth of punk, or before that, like glitter music, and before that, you know, 60s psychedelia, it felt like that. And we felt right in amongst it, because we made that album on a little 8-track tape recorder in a warehouse with hardly any money. We just borrowed instruments here and then. Things when people would have like a clap machine, you know, we had to sort of bash on a door with some strips of wood to try and make the same sound. And the album is full of sounds that nobody would believe how we recorded them, you know.
I think that was the beauty of it, really, that because we didn't have the resources, we had to be very inventive. And often when you're in a situation where you have to be inventive, very interesting results come out of it. As opposed to a lot of groups, when they get money and success, they might tend to sort of forget about using innovative ideas or experimenting and playing a bit safe.
I think a good thing that Annie and I have done as well is we've always kept that, you know, even though we've become successful and could afford to record anywhere in the world, or we've always made it right on the edge. For instance, that every album we've never made under normal circumstances. Yeah. The second album that followed that up, we made in a church that you actually visited. That wasn't built yet, you know, we made it in a derelict building site virtually. And then the next album we made was in Nassau, in the middle of a tropical, no, what was it? Hurricane. Wow. And the next album we made in a Paris youth club virtually, you know, with kids playing pinball and things while we were trying to record.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, even with the film clips, though, I mean, like with both Sweet Dreams and Love is a Stranger, the film, like the vision was different to anything else we'd actually been used to on camera, you know, on shows like ourselves, you know, that we've got Countdown sounds, whatever it may be. Whose ideas were they? Were they collectively both?
Well, most of the ideas were from Dave, but I think the thing is that the way the partnership works is that I understand Dave's ideas and I'm able to interpret them visually and have a certain sense of, I don't know, style or I don't know what exactly, kind of artistic direction. And two of us understand each other very well.
I think the reason why our video clips have a strange element to them is because we weren't sort of indoctrinated with rock and roll music and music videos, and we didn't think along those commercial lines. So, for instance, Sweet Dreams, a lot of the kind of visual imagery from that I was taken from L'Age d'Or, which was a film by Salvador Dali, and you know, a lot of the imagery wasn't coming from the normal mainstream rock place, and that was an interesting thing, because as soon as I showed the video of Sweet Dreams, for instance, to friends, they were going, my God, you can't put that on the TV, it's too weird, nobody will understand what it is. And then I knew that I'd done the right thing.
Well, then Love is a Stranger definitely started to give you an image as well, and I mean, as a look. I think that's, you know, when we first started to get the taste of you.
Well, there was a sort of sense of characterization through the songs. And when I'm performing, that's how I see performance, as sort of characterization. It's not exactly the same as acting, because you're interpreting your own ideas as opposed to becoming another person. But it's sort of showing different aspects.
Well, even with your own look, Dave, you start to sort of get some rather outrageous looks going.
Yeah. Well,
sometimes you have to be guess where he is and who's which.
Yeah, well, a lot of the time I used to play the kind of mad professor, kind of behind the scenes. I always wanted people to think that Annie was like not a real person and it was some kind of fictitious character that me as a mad professor had sort of cooked up. A bit like, you know, Frankenstein's monster in a way.
Yeah.
So, in a way that people would think, are they real or what is actually happening? And the whole process of bringing it to this, where we are now, has still been thought out as to develop people along with us and then suddenly deliver them something totally real, which we did in Would I Lie to You, where we actually hit the stage and people thought, oh, it really is them and they really are writing songs and playing music.
I read somewhere just on the songwriting where, I think it was a quote of yours, Dave, where you sort of said that you tend to sort of whip out tunes like, you know, you go, and yet Annie takes her time with lyrics.
No, well, Annie tends to collect lyrics over a period of time, so when she writes... See, 10 days before we make an album, we usually write a song a day for 10 days, and that's the 10 songs on the album. We don't write 20 and choose 10, or we don't write 5 and finish that. We tend to have the 10. And Annie has tended to collect lyrics throughout, say, the 9 months before that, you know, on bus tickets or all over the place, and she's written them in a book. And they aren't actually lyrics of songs like them, they're actually like poems, or there might just be 4 lines, or there might be a title. And we actually use that to set the mood sometimes of the whole piece. Annie might say, well, like for instance, Missionary Man. She'd written the whole words of Missionary Man. It was like a poem or something. You know, it was like a completed thing. But it was from that, Don't Mess with a Missionary Man,
right,
that when she pulled that out in the studio in Paris, I got the riff immediately that fitted exactly with it. And then Annie sang over the top. And within about 10 minutes, literally, the whole song was finished. The rest was just adding little things on. I think Missionary Man's probably the fastest song we've ever written, isn't it? I mean, you'd written the words, but the way the song actually came together...
It fell into place. It fell into place. And there was a need for me to sort of sing a song like that, not just from a personal level, but also because I don't like the power that a lot of people have in the media to sort of like the kind of religious confidence tricksters, but they're not just always religious people, they can be politicians also, or just simply salesmen, the sort of the saviors of the new age, you know, and it's a slight swipe at that. I like words that are that can be interpreted in many different ways. I think when a song is simply saying one thing and it's obvious that's what it is and it leaves no interpretation to the listener, it has no longevity. I think there's something to be said for interpretation. And I always like to think that Eurythmics songs can be seen from many different viewpoints. So when people ask me about this album, and I mean, we had a girl call in on a radio show and say, is Missionary Man anti-church? And I had to say, well, it's not, it can't be taken as literally as that. There's no way that you can interpret it like that. It's an open book, and all the songs are open books, and they're there to be enjoyed for that purpose.
Right. I mean, but obviously there's some personal side in it as well.
There's a personal side in, yeah.
In every song.
In every song.
Yeah.
Some more than others, definitely.